right. I've often said, we wouldn't do anything if we knew how hard it was going to be when we started. Not children, not writing books, not starting a business, none of it. We would never do that. We just all sit home.
So how many kids do you have?
I have two children, both girls, and they're 9 and 12 years old.
Nice. Well, you have a handful right there in itself, trying to be a businesswoman, be a cyclist. Then we're going to dive into those stories and do the things, the adventures in life, and really embracing stuff that we can consider challenges. But I believe that we are given stuff in life that we may view as challenges, but it may be an opportunity for us to be a better person. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Running Strong Mind Body Connection podcast. So, this is where we explore the powerful intersection of movement, mindset, and what it truly means to stay strong through life's challenges. I'm your host, Karen Bonnet-Natraj, mental fitness and peak performance coach, and I work with athletes, leaders, and high achievers I work with high achievers who want to quiet, not win, who want to quiet that mental chatter, build resilience, and perform at their best, both in sport and in life. It's a lifelong journey. Today's conversation is going to be a powerful one, you guys. I'm joined by an author, editor, writing coach, and cyclist, and someone who embodies what it means to honor the mind-body connection in a deeply human way. She's the author of of a novel, Deborah Lee's "Won't Break," and a story behind centered on a woman who undertakes a 150-mile bike ride before multiple sclerosis slowed her down. You see, I did the same bike ride she did, but in a different place. We're going to explore that. So what matters is this story even more compelling is that my guest didn't just write about the ride, she lived it. She completed the same 150-mile cycling event herself, trained intentionally for it, and raised money for the National MS Society along the way. We're going to explore how she and I both did the same thing. In today's episode, we're going to explore the intersection of cycling, chronic illness, identity, and mindset, and what she learned about resilience, listening to the body, and inner strength through both movement and creativity. So, this is a conversation about endurance on the bike, on the page, and in life. So, let's dive in. But first, I really want to make a quick thank you to a couple of brands that I support this show and support athletes like you. I support Vespa, an incredible fat metabolizing fuel designed for endurance athletes who want clean, sustained energy without no sugar spikes. And I've used it and I'm just swear by it of how great I feel and how fast I recover. And squirrel nut butter may go to it's my go-to anti-chafing solution, trusted by endurance athletes everywhere for long training days and race efforts. You'll find links for both of these in the show notes. So let's dive in. Hey, you guys, here we are. Welcome to Running Strong Mind Body Connection podcast. And like I said, today I have a wonderful guest, Katherine Pickett, who it's gonna be a fun conversation on our commonality of what we have going on in life. So, Katherine, thank you so much for joining my podcast. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So, for those who are listening and kind of meeting you for the first time, how do you usually describe yourself when you are beyond titles like your author or a cyclist, editor, or whatever? How do you describe yourself?
Let's see. It's hard to move beyond titles, I think, because that first, when I'm not thinking of business and hobbies, I'm thinking of my children. So I think of myself as a mom and a wife. But beyond that, I'm someone who's very passionate about the things that I care about. I That's something people learn about me pretty quickly. When I try something, I like to go all in, and I'm not afraid to try new things, even if sometimes I don't really know if I'm getting in over my head or not.
Those are the wins in life, right?
That's right. I've often said, we wouldn't do anything if we knew how hard it was going to be when we started. Not children, not writing books, not starting a business, none of it. We would never do that. We'd just all sit home.
So how many kids do you have?
I have two children, both girls, and they're 9 and 12 years old.
Nice. Well, you have a handful right there in itself, trying to be a businesswoman, be a cyclist. Then we're going to dive into those stories and do the things, the adventures in life, and really embracing stuff that we can consider challenges. But I believe that we are given stuff in life that we may view as challenges, but it may be an opportunity for us to be a better person in the long run.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
yeah. So, what drew you to cycling in the first place?
Oh gosh, I've been a cyclist all my life. I started riding when I was 5 years old. I learned how to ride on the neighbor's bike. They they were like, "Oh yeah, you can try," and I learned. And my dad used to fix up bikes for us, so there were. I come from a big family, and we all had a bicycle. But I think I probably took to it the most, and yes, so I've loved riding and have just slowly been doing like longer rides, different challenges, things like that. Started out with mountain biking, and I would do in my teens, I would do trail riding with a friend. At a certain point, I got to be uh, actually my fear increased as I got older, and I just couldn't do some of those things anymore. So I switched to road cycling and distance cycling, and yeah, it's been great.
We have similar backgrounds. I did the same thing. I loved riding a bike when I was a kid. I even made my dad paint my bike purple, and he did. And my sister and I we lived at the top of this hill, so we would ride our bike down the hill, wait for now this won't ever happen in today's world, but we waited for the mailman to come, and then we'd hold on to the back of the truck of the mailman and let him drag us up the hill on our bikes.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. And you cross through, zipping through intersections, and you just kind of cross your fingers that no cars are coming. Absolutely. We
Kids
did
were
the same.
careless. We were fearless and careless. And I always rode road bikes, so I never had the experience of a mountain bike. But you kind of brought that word in of fear as we get older. But I do trail runs and I trip enough on those trail runs. I am not about to crash on a bike and a mountain bike.
Yeah, I've had enough crashes that it can be scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. Even training for the MS 150, I crashed. There was a car that turned, and I almost got hit. They didn't see me, and I crashed not into the car, into a curb because I was
Yeah.
trying to avoid the car, and spilled everywhere and banged up my knee. Oh, that was rough. Yeah. It still happens, is the point. But we get it on, we heal, so we can get back on the
Isn't
bike.
that one thing beautiful about the body is it wants to heal?
It is, that's right, that's right.
Yeah. I've experienced that. I was down in Phoenix and where my brother lives in writing, and I was with this car, actually these gardeners. Then it was early morning, so I knew they weren't awake yet, and then carrying their trailer. And I'm in traffic with them, and it wasn't fast or anything. I'm riding right next to them. We stopped at many stoplights, but for some reason I had a feeling, and they did the same thing to me. They pulled right in front of me. I'm sitting right there.
Yeah.
And I did exactly what you did. It was more about catching myself not to, run into them. And then, yeah, yeah, it's quite embarrassing, if anything.
Yeah, well, you know, it was it shook me up a bit. Yeah.
Right.
That's for sure. But thankfully that doesn't happen too often,
Right.
but yeah, you have to watch out when you're out there. Yeah.
So the MS 150 ride, and when I read your information. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have something common to talk about. First off, where did you do your MS 150 ride?
So I did it at the Chesapeake Challenge, which is in Easton, Maryland.
Okay.
So kind of eastern shore of Maryland. I live in Silver Spring, which is about an hour away, 1 to 2 hours, depending on traffic, from Easton. And so they have the annual ride there. And you ride along, there are parts where you ride along the Chesapeake Bay, and you even take a ferry across the Chesapeake with your bike, which is a lot of fun.
Right.
And then go along. So, yeah, it was very cool.
So share with us your story of why you did that. What got you, yeah, why did you do that? What was it about that for you that got you into the MS 150 ride? MS
Yeah.
150, for everybody to understand, is the Multiple Sclerosis Society. And you'll hear more about my little story there, but I want to really hear about your story.
Yeah. So the MS 150, it's now been rebranded as Bike MS, so people might see that more if they go looking for it. You might see Bike MS, they have Walk MS, and all this. I actually looked into doing it myself, finally, in 2023. Okay, I guess I started on, well, yeah, okay. So 2023. I was writing a book, a novel, about a woman who has multiple sclerosis. And part of the story, actually a big part of the story, is that she is training for this bike ride. And I knew of the bike ride just from friends who had done it, and kind of through the ether I knew of this ride, but I'd always thought that it was too much for me. I just wasn't sure that I would be able to do it. But as I'm writing this novel about this woman and I'm trying to convey what she's going through and really capture her experience, I was like, I'm gonna have to do this ride. I can't completely make this up, even though I've previously done a 100-mile bike ride in 2005. So it had been 18 years or something. So I mean, I had a lot of experience to draw on, but doing the actual ride, I just wanted to know for myself, what was the route? What were the biggest challenges? What was it like to be there with that crowd, that specific crowd too? Because, it's different from other long rides I've done. There's a big emphasis on the fundraising and a lesser emphasis on like achievement. Like you can do any distance you want. They want you to raise money for the cause, and connect with people. There's much more to it than just doing the distance, which my first 100 miler, it was, it was called the Beer and Brat, and it was a one-day thing, and everybody just rides 100 miles on the bike. So this was a very different approach, and I was so glad that I went to do it. I learned a lot about MS. I learned a lot about the event, a lot about my character who I was trying to create, and then just also for my personal self, had a wonderful time training and getting stronger, and really doing the ride and achieving what I set out to do.
So what did you learn about yourself?
That I could still do it. It's part of it. I was 43, and it was 18 years after the last 100-mile ride I'd done. I'd done a 50-mile ride since then, but this is a 2-day challenge. I did 70 miles on day 1 and 52 miles on day 2. There actually wasn't a way for me to do all 150 miles unless I did 100 miles and then 50. And I knew from experience I would not be able to get back on the bike after 100 miles. I would be wiped. So I had to compromise my goal. That was hard. I was really disappointed to not be able to do the full 150, but they didn't have a 75-75 split the way many of the rides do. I had gone in thinking that was what I was going to be able to do, and then had to change tactics. So being able, like, pulling back from that goal was really hard. I really wanted to do 150 miles, and I only did 122. So, but to a normal person, other people, 122 miles is still a really big achievement. And
Exactly.
and it was what I knew I could do, and I raised $1,600 for multiple sclerosis research. My family came and supported me. It was a really great experience, and I was able to let go of that perfectionist, completionist mindset that, oh, you have to do all of the miles. It doesn't count if you didn't, I was able to let that go. So all of that in that experience, I am definitely a perfectionist, definitely a completionist. And so getting challenged in that way, I wasn't expecting to be challenged that way.
Yeah,
But it was good. It's good. And I'm proud of what I did. So
absolutely. So what was your relation though with the MS? Was it just this book you were writing, or was there something deeper?
so the relationship with MS is a little tangential. I don't I don't know people now. I know people with MS because I've inserted myself into the community, and
Okay.
they've been very, very nice and welcomed me. I do have experience with chronic illness and experience with neurological disorders. So I have epilepsy. My father had Parkinson's disease.
Mm,
When I set out to write the book, I wanted to shine a light on chronic illness and have some representation for people who aren't often shown in adult fiction. And MS was something where I had enough knowledge from my own personal experience to have a foothold, but also enough ignorance to be interested. You know,
sure.
I could have written about someone with epilepsy or someone with Parkinson's, but those were very familiar to me, and I was looking to branch out a little bit and see something new. And frankly, had been concerned about writing someone else's experience. Like I don't have MS, so is it okay for me to write someone else's experience? And what I heard back from the MS community was they were very grateful that I had taken the time to come and meet with them, because I joined a support group and met people and enlisted their help in reviewing drafts of the manuscript and all of this stuff so that I could
Wow.
really
Hmm.
capture. I wanted to capture their authentic experience. And all humility, I mean, I know what I know, but I don't have MS, even though I can project some things based on my own experience with
Sure.
neurologists and chronic health issues and all of these things. And Frank, it turns out we actually have quite a bit in common.
Yeah.
So it was not as big of a bridge to cross as I maybe expected.
I could kind of imagine that those people would be grateful because there's not a lot of people who might be sitting with their maybe the uncomfortable of having MS and want to talk about it, want to talk about their journey. They don't want to talk about themselves because they're trying to live life just to begin with. And I think that's really a great avenue for you on opening up to this chronic illness and, opening people's minds and understanding of that. So, our mother, me and my siblings, our mother died of Lou Gehrig's disease. which was really hard. It was hard at the time. So I'm going to say this was around 1996 to 98. It was very uncommon for women, but it was more about men. It was very new. I believe it was a very new disease. It's based on Lou Gehrig, who that's what it's kind of like associated with. And the diagnosis was really long because they couldn't peg it because they were trying to find the signs of MS, but it didn't fit. And it didn't fit, and it didn't fit until they finally honed in on it. And then they discovered that it was ALS. And it was 2 years. She passed. I mean, it was a fast moving for her, and there was no remission. I believe MS has some lot of signs. I know a few people who have MS, and there's times of remission, but ALS just goes down. And I'm sure today, so this is like many years ago that this happened. So today I'm sure they have, but a lot more studies, a lot more remedies, a lot more, research behind it. So it had to been maybe late 90s, 99, 98. My brothers and I, and my oldest son, who was 10, I think, at the time, and his cousin, we did raise money. I'm sorry, I don't remember how much we raised, but individually we each raised money, the three of us, me and my two brothers. And my son and I were living in a town called Kingman. And so I would take him out in the early mornings of Saturday before the winds hit, go climb this hill. I gave him my mountain bike and I bought a used Terry bike for myself. So this event though went from Phoenix to Parker, and it was 75, I believe it was 75, and they had an aid station, a sleepover, food and everything for us at that first day stop. So we just told the boys, my son and his cousin, you guys take off, knowing they would be slower, right? We saw the cousin. I never saw my son. And I started freaking out, but there's no way to get lost because it was super supported. There's only one road, and I don't know where my son's at. And so my brother and I hammered it to the next aid station. No son, no Taryn, no son. And I'm freaking out. I get to the, I finally get, my brother is faster than me, so I sent him off, and I'm going to be along the way, just hammering it just to find my son. He's at the finish line.
Wow.
He was adopted, picked up, and nurtured by this racing team. And he stayed with them the whole time. This 10-year-old kid who had no clue about long distance cycling probably didn't drink or eat because these guys don't, right? They're racers. And they probably didn't stop at the aid station, but they kept him with them. And his eyes were like this big. And he's like, Mom, can I eat? I'm like, for sure. And the next day, he goes, Mom, can I ride with you? It's like, oh my gosh, Taryn. Our intent of the boys being slower and us riding, catching up and riding was not in his mindset. He thought he had to finish it.
Oh my heavens.
So, so the second day we rode together, and it was just so hilarious. But what a great experience, though.
Yeah. Well, and I love the community. You say
Yes,
he was adopted. Nobody was going to let him like straggle on the side or
right.
suffer in any way, right? That's so wonderful. Scary for you, I'm sure.
Oh, totally. What did I do to my son? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was and like we talked earlier, I mean, our childhood of cycling and blah, blah, blah. That was my introductory of where I went with cycling. And with the kids and I came back to California, did 100, did 200, got into the brevets. I've done all that stuff in cycling, and just cycling, I think, is one of the best ways to see the world or even
Oh
see
yeah.
where you're living, because when you drive in a car, you don't see stuff. But when
Yeah.
we're out there on a bike and being safe and whatnot, and I've ridden all over California, I've ridden all over France and Italy and Germany and or not Germany, Switzerland and Italy. But yeah, it's taken me many, many places.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I agree. I loved cycling. I love going places on my bike when I can. Another way my mind was changed with riding my bike, with writing this book, is also so that my character rides an e-bike. And that was partly a concession to people who don't have MS, because actually people with MS could ride an e-bike or they could ride a standard bike. And so my character rides with pedal assist. And I, for a long time, felt like, well, e-bikes are kind of cheating, you're not really getting the same exercise and blah, blah, blah. And my mind has completely changed on that. Because you can, it's up to you how much effort you want to put in when you're on an e-bike or a standard bike. The difference is on an e-bike, you can go much greater distances. So, like, if you're going to do something like you're saying, see the world, I mean, certainly you can go on a standard bike, and that's a challenge of its own. Or if that's not for you, you could go on an e-bike and have that adventure. It just, to me, it opens up the possibility to more people rather than, somehow being like cheating or you're not really putting in the full effort. Well, however you are going to go see the world, that's going to change you. You don't,
Right.
so, and whatever the physical challenge you're willing to do, whatever you're interested in challenging yourself to see if you can achieve, again, up to you. If that means an e-bike where you're working but not as hard as somebody on a standard bike or not, it just is more possibilities for people. So you have less excuse for not doing these kinds of adventures, because there are
I
accommodations.
I agree with you, even though sometimes I might, and I appreciate your this conversation because sometimes I have an attitude about e-bikes. But my neighbor, so I ride a regular bike, I ride a fixed gear, or I ride a tri bike. And I was riding my tri bike, and I'm living in Auburn. We have nothing but hills here, so you're either going up or down. And the first half of the ride is all downhill, then it's flat, then it's all uphill. And my neighbor, had an e-bike. So it was kind of like Mutt and Jeff. It was kind of like two completely different cyclists. If you're going to see me with a group of people, it's going to be people on tri bikes or regular bike. But now I'm riding with my neighbor who's riding an e-bike. And we leave our neighborhood here, and it's all downhill. Now that e-bike wouldn't go any faster than I think 15 miles an hour. So I could fly, and then I'd wait for her. But then and I believe I took her on it might have been a 30-mile bike ride. So it would have been her longest ride. And she did something I think e-bike people are considering e-bike. She had to change her battery. So she brought along a different battery just because she wasn't sure. And you can set the effort if you want to ride uphill or on the flats or whatnot, as opposed to just letting the bike, which is going to use more battery, right? So obviously I could ride downhill faster than her, but then she could go faster uphill with me. It was just hilarious. And we stopped and changed the battery, but it was super fun. And it was super fun for her. Exactly what you're saying is that it opens the world up for people who never thought they could ride a bike because she would never get a regular bike. There's no way. So many people would never, the fear of going in traffic, the fear of, just being on a bike. How do you ride a bike? If you didn't ride a bike like we did as a kid, it's the same thing as swimming. Once you swim, you're always a swimmer. Once you're a cyclist, you're always on a bike. You know how to do it, even though it may be quite a few years, but people have never done it. This is a huge place to open, a huge area that they can open up into. And
Yeah.
so it was a great day together too. It was
Yeah,
really a
that's
great
wonderful. I
day.
love that. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good to see, and it just makes me smile when people realize that they can accomplish something that maybe they thought they couldn't, or they even just trying something that they previously had ruled out. It's
Right.
such a joy to be a part of that.
Yeah. And and a lot of what I coach on is getting out of our limiting beliefs, our sabotaging thoughts, and trusting that there's something out there. When we stay stuck in that fear based or that negative base, things don't open up to you because you're so hijacked by your amygdala. So, but if you have the nature about you to be curious about stepping beyond that fear and just stepping into, what could be possible, that's when things open up. I know from my running and whatnot, I've been injured, I don't know how many times, but it hasn't stopped me from doing that. I've crashed on my bike. The only bike I ever crashed on was my tri bike. All the other bikes I never crashed on. One time I crashed on it because the guys set the brake pads so close, and I was so used to hitting from the fixed gear. I only had a front brake, so I was so used to hitting that front brake, and I touched it and I flipped.
Yep.
I had a guy sitting on the side of the road because it was riding up Forest Hill here. It's all day climb and then it's all day downhill. And I'm riding up and I freaked him out. I scared him so bad. And he opens the door. He goes, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "Can you take the bike off of me?" So, I was still clipped in with the bike on top of me. And I'm like, "Did the bike get hurt?" I'll heal, but did the bike get hurt? And everything was me because the bike was on top of me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is something else. Yeah, I've had a few spills for sure. But yeah, you keep going. You keep
Yeah.
going.
It's that, and like I said, you know, breaking a bone and running and whatnot, it's like I still have that drive to want to be out there and do it again and see how I can do it better. And age is not the limit.
That's right. That's right. I'll say when I was 25, I was working in an office for a publishing house in Chicago. And I had, it's funny now, I mean, it's so long ago, but I was like, man, I'm 25, I'm getting older, I'm going to start to break down soon, and all this. And I worked on a stretching book. It's called Stretching for Health. And the book mentions that your muscles will continue to have the ability to get stronger throughout your life. Like that ability never goes away. And I was like, "Oh, I don't think I just thought that you would get old and you break easily and then you can't do anything and you're just on this downward unhealthy path like starting I guess I thought starting at age 25 because I was already thinking about how terrible it was going to be, and that fact alone, I was like, oh, oh, I don't have to have this preconceived notion of what old age looks like because I can continue stretching, I can continue building strength as I go. And yeah, you get more prone to injury and you take longer to recover, or can, but there are, accommodations for that, and consistent activity is going to keep you healthier and prevent you from injury
Right.
so much more. Yeah.
I love that. I love that revelation for you. My mom was old at 40 and she sat in a chair and she was like, "Oh, don't do that because you're going to hurt yourself or you're going to do this or you're going to do that." And it's like, so she had her own fears that she was trying to implode upon us, which I didn't listen to. And it's it's amazing though that as a kid you could probably do somersaults and jump over things and fall down and get up and do it over and over again. Those things do change as we get older. We're not as agile, but I support, exercise. I support lifting weights, especially for women to keep our bones strong. I support doing agility work, just the little things of do a jump rope or stand on a boso ball. There's all sorts of tools out here that can keep us still in balance and strong that as we age. So I know I've mentioned this before. Probably I've mentioned this before in the podcast. My neighbor down here is turning 100 in March. And when we first moved here, I met her because we were doing little repeats up. She lives at the bottom of like a 20% grade hill. It's short but long at that steepness. And I taught her how to swim, and she was in her 90s. So this has been, 10 years or so. No, we've been here 7 years, I think. I taught her how to swim. She maintained her own house. She has her faculties about her, and I went on a walk with her the other day. She only does a couple of not canes just because in case, but she doesn't have to have them to walk. And she's like, I don't hear very well, but I'm like, Marianne, you can hear the plane that's way up there. I think you're hearing fine. I think my vision's going, but you can see Mount Diablo that's like, I don't know how many hundreds of miles away on a very clear day. I don't think your vision's bad. So it's those limiting beliefs and, what people might say of you, and society says that too. So our brains can still expand. We can change the neuroplasticity of our brains. We can keep our bodies healthy, stay strong. And I'm going to pace a lady. She'll be on my podcast in the near future, who's going to do her first 100-mile run at 70 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And I
Wow.
said, Cheryl's her name. And I'm like, I'm going to give up my race for that day. I'm going to come pace you. I'm going to come support you and make sure you finish that, help you finish your first 100. So there's always possibilities in life. Don't ever limit ourselves.
Yeah, wow. Amazing. And
Yeah.
how lucky you are to be there with her for that.
Oh,
That'll
for
be so
sure.
good. So good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. But it's so important to keep moving. And a lot of that is, I mean, 25, you're not ready to retire. But a lot of people who get to that point of retirement, they're like, well, what do I do now? And there's a whole life out there. There's a whole life out there that we can do so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, yeah, this is so amazing. All of these adventures that you've had, it's wonderful to hear about.
Yeah. Great to share. So for someone navigating this chronic illness or these doubts, injury, or limitations, what would you want them to hear today, and what advice would you give them?
I would say don't be afraid to try something new. Certainly, with preparation, taking your time, you can add small things until you build up. You know, you can really go from the couch to a 100-mile bike ride in about 12 weeks. So if you're just slowly adding miles, then you'll stay safe, you'll stay healthy, and I think you'd have a wonderful time doing
I love that. Couch to 100 miles.
it. That's right.
So many talk
That's right.
about a couch to 50K. No, a couch to a 100-mile bike ride. I love that.
That's right.
Thank you so
That's right.
much, Catherine. Super great to hear your story. Super grateful you're on my podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to meet you and spend time with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.